Hey everyone, I'm not Donna Sakar.
And I'm clearly not Rajiv Rajagopalan.
So how many of you in this room are devs?
I'm a dev. Oh, we do have some devs here.
Fernie, of course you're a dev. You're on my team. I know this.
Well, not for long. I'm thinking of joining Microsoft IT to support their applications.
Hold on, does your boss know? No. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, if you are going to be going to Microsoft IT to support their applications, you should probably know a little bit about the Windows Insider program. What do you know about it?
So I know that you're releasing different cadences. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So started October 2014. Okay. There's about 15 million insiders right now. They submit petabytes of feedback on a regular basis, and they, more importantly, help inspire the direction of our products. Okay.
Okay.
So what do you know about deploying Windows all up?
So I know that I want to be, now that I'm going to be part of Microsoft IT, I want to know that I want to be part of certain ring so I can get certain things.
So it's the ring theory of how we're deploying Windows these days. So as you all know, Windows comes out about every 6 months, and the Windows Insider program is kind of that first look into it. There's several rings, as the solar system diagram shows. The Windows Insider fast ring, as the name implies, is pretty fast.
Fast ring, best ring.
Fast ring, best ring. It comes out weekly. It's very close to the dev cycle. It allows us to catch those bugs that are early in the development cycle. It kind of gives us a gauge for the sentiment of the builds that are coming out. Now, the Windows Insider Slow Ring comes out about once a month, and it's much better. It's gone through more validation. As you can see, there's like 5 different rings that it goes through before it gets to Windows Insider Slow. And then on the far right there's Release Preview. Release Preview comes out about 2 weeks before it goes out to general availability. So not as much time for you guys to go out and check to make sure that your applications are still working. So you have Windows Insider Fast weekly, Windows Insider Slow monthly, and then Release Preview, which is about 2 weeks before general availability.
I see. So now that I'm going to be, again, part of Microsoft IT, which ring am I supposed to use?
Windows Insider Slow is the ring for your business. Okay? This is for the people that want to stay productive. And we've heard this at conferences like this, in meetings, and more importantly, we see this in the data that we get back from the insiders, that they're running slow builds. But what does this mean? It's like you as an insider want to see Windows early, but you don't have time to troubleshoot everything, okay? They want to be productive on this ring, so you should be able to have your normal day-to-day job go through without experiencing any crashes. That's the way we look at the Windows Insider Slow ring. You should also expect it to be more stable. So the fast ring comes out very regularly, and it winds up having a couple of interesting treats in it, but the Windows Insider Slow ring is more stable than that ring. And then starting in RS5, this gentleman here, Joel, stand up and wave your hands. Yeah, Joel is going to be servicing the Windows Insider Slow ring. So we're committing, you'll see a blog post about this when it's live, but we're committing that once a month, select a build, bring it up and stabilize it to a level of quality that meets those first 2 criteria there. It's productive and stable. And then what will it look like? It's kind of like Patch Tuesday.
That's new news. No one knows. PR Extra does not know. So
yeah, the news is the slow rate getting service.
Yes.
This is going to be this is important.
News.
Presses as of yesterday. So yeah.
Thank you from the peanut gallery here. All right. Yeah, all right. So as an added benefit, this will fit, we'll have time for questions in a little bit there, sir. Microsoft, it'll fit more into the Office cadence. It's closer to the Microsoft 365, and you'll see this across build that there's going to be a lot of Microsoft 365 type alignment, and that's exactly what this is. So what does it look like for you? You and your teams at MSIT should start using WIP slow builds to validate that those applications will continue to work. We'll support it. Doesn't mean you should expect problems with each new release, but we want to give you a heads up if anything come up. Fair?
Sounds good.
Okay. So that's what you should do to hit your target. All right. So enough of the recommendations. Let's kind of talk about some of the actual insiders who are using it. Like I said, there's over 15 million insiders that are in the program, and many of them work at organizations like yours in the audience here, Fernie at MSIT. But we've heard from these insiders that they use the program to see the future.
What does it mean to see the
That's a
future?
good question, good question. So this gentleman here, who works at a large financial institution in the southeast of the US, that we can't say the name, is one of the insiders who's using the program to see what's coming next. Are there new features in RS5 that he wants to take advantage of? Are things like timeline, if you want his applications to work in this new operating model? If yes, the only way that you can do that is with the Windows Insider program. You can get a head start on implementing those features.
I see.
Yeah. So the other use that we've heard is from this gentleman, Paul, who's from New Zealand. And he uses the Windows Insider program to make sure his applications continue to work.
Look at, he's using also Windows Analytics.
I think you could talk about that a little later, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Paul uses WIP slow builds in RS4, the release that we just had, to make sure that his applications continue to work. He didn't run into any issues, but he did have peace of mind that when RS4 was rolled out to the rest of the world, he was confident he wouldn't be called in last minute to fix any issues with the new version of Windows. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. So what good is, let's talk about feedback. What good is it to run these pre-release builds if you're not actually getting feedback from the people that are checking, that are using the builds? I mean, hopefully you don't have any problems, but if you do, the Feedback Hub is in every version of Windows 10. And if you run into problems, please submit feedback. I think you guys have heard this before. Yeah? No? Come on. Yeah.
I've heard it.
One person. All right. So with the Windows Insider program for business, this is for organizations. You can submit feedback on behalf of your organizations.
Oh, I see. So my users can give me feedback about the applications I'm developing?
That's right. So it's two-pronged. First, all your feedback is associated with your organization, so Microsoft can see that it comes from an organizational customer, and you do that through Azure Active Directory. It doesn't mean that you have to have your identity managed through Azure Active Directory. You just have to be able to authenticate with the Feedback Hub. So if you have O365, you're good to go.
I see.
Okay. And as you mentioned, the other thing is that you, as an internal person to that organization, can see all the feedback that's coming back. So if you're working on some kind of application, you can see the feedback from your customers at the same time. Cool. So what does it look like? Well, as you can see, the Feedback Hub you just launched with any start menu type Feedback Hub, it's there. On the right-hand side, you see what it looks like when you're logged in as an Insider for Business. Anton there is logged in with Insider for Business, and that's what that tag does. When you search for feedback, you can use that filter there to say, show me feedback only from my organization. So as you can see, this user is having a problem with their invoicing app, which I'm sure never happens to anyone in this room. Yeah, I know that. But you can also see on that particular piece of feedback who's upvoted it, given more comments, give you a little color behind the problem that they're running into. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, how familiar are you with people reporting problems through feedback?
I'm pretty familiar. Petabytes of data a day. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
pretty familiar.
Well, then you probably notice that sometimes you get very actionable comments.
Sometimes.
Right? Sometimes you just by reading it, you understand what's happening. Sometimes they give you detailed repro steps that you can take into your laptop and start debugging it locally. Sometimes they even give you solutions.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But in some other cases, your users will hit problems that are hard to put in text. And it will seem anecdotal, but that doesn't mean that they're not experiencing problems. And I know that you as developers care for them, not just for the sake of your job, but to empower them to be more efficient. Well, now that I'm working with Microsoft IT, helping them support all the internal applications that they're going to be using in Microsoft, I'll be owning a line of business application for the sales department. So it's going to be critical for me to actually use Feedback Hub to look at all the feedback my customers are giving to me, my users.
So something you might not know, later today, TH2428 will tell you how to plug that sales application into the Feedback Hub yourself so you can get feedback directly.
Perfect, I'll be there.
Okay.
Because not just with feedback, we also need objective metrics that can help us determine if the feedback we're getting is anecdotal or not. For that, we're going to introduce two free new services that you can use to complement the stories. We're talking about Windows Analytics and the Windows Desktop Application Program. Now, both will give you the objective metrics to give you, to complement the story, to give you the confidence that you can understand and fix these kind of problems. It will make it easy for you to support Windows 10 as you release new features on your applications. Now, how does it look? What's the difference between Windows Analytics and the desktop application program? Well, Windows Analytics gives you a holistic view of your organization. It allows you to track the health of the devices and applications running in it. It was built with enterprises and IT pros in mind to help them stay current with Windows 10 updates. We recognize the power that it has not just for IT pros, but you as developers to monitor and support your applications so you can see what's happening, in real time in production with your apps. Now, in contrast with the Windows Desktop Application Program, it was built with developers and ISVs in mind. It gives you a laser-focused view into your applications, no matter where they run. It also allows you to track its adoption and its health. But more importantly, you can remotely get actionable logs from your insiders to locally repro the problems and fix them.
So what I was talking about with Feedback Hub, that's more like the anecdotes of what's going wrong.
Correct.
And everything you're talking about here is the hard data to support that.
That's correct.
Okay, that sounds great. So what does that mean for that sales application you were talking about earlier?
Good point. So imagine that a couple of weeks ago we made a major release in this sales application. So there are two things that are going to be critical for me to track. The first one is how fast my organization is adopting my latest version. I mean, we work to deploy these new features and security patches, so we definitely want to have our whole organization moving into that version. So for that, you want to use Windows Analytics because it provides you a view of all the devices in your organization and how many are using the latest version. Now, the second thing we want to check is if you have not regressed anything on your application. Why? Because we made so many changes in our application, and even though you test it, you want to track if in production something is going wrong. For that, you want to use the Windows Desktop Application Program to get diagnostic logs from your insiders to debug all these problems.
Okay, so Windows Analytics kind of gives you that holistic view so you can see the rollout and errors at a large level. And
Correct.
Windows Desktop Application Program lets you drill in deep.
That's right.
All right, I think I understand, but can you tell me a little bit more about analytics?
Sure. So Windows Analytics gives you 3 different tools, or if you want to call it different views to your organization. The first one gives you information about the health, about your devices and application. That's what we've been talking about. Second, it gives you information about what devices are lagging behind in OS critical patches. And lastly, it gives you a view for IT pros to support Windows 10 on every release. It is a guided solution to stay current with Windows 10. Now, with the vast data that we're providing you, it also gives you a rich query language so you can query application problems, put them side by side with the devices, and find patterns and trends. Now, if you're looking for, what's the adoption of your application or the health of it, you definitely want to use Windows Analytics.
Okay.
Now, to get started is very, very simple. And if you want to start using it right now, you should be taking a picture of this slide.
Take a picture of the slide. Yeah.
Go for it.
It's free tools. Your
Now-
boss likes free things.
Now, it's that simple. All you need to do is go to aka.ms/Windows Analytics, and as a new customer, you're going to create a workspace. You're going to link your workspace to any of your Azure accounts and add Windows Analytics to your workspace. Now, once you enable your devices to send data to Windows Analytics, this is how your homepage will look like.
Magic transition.
Magic transition. Ta-da! Now, what you see on the screen is real data from MSIT devices, from a subset of those devices. We mentioned that Windows Analytics gives you 3 different views to your organization. The first one on the left will be device health. That's what we're going to be looking at. Second, update compliance. Remember, you want to track if anybody in your organization is lagging behind. Third, upgrade readiness to help IT pros to stay current with Windows 10 feature updates. Now remember, there are 2 things that I want to track. How fast is my organization adopting my latest version? And second, if there's any problem with it. For that, we're going to go to device health. Now, you're going to see a lot of interesting data over here. But what we want to focus right now is on the app section, on the app reliability section. What that's going to give you is first, a summary of the top application, the top crashing applications on your entire organization. It also gives you side by side how many devices are actively using it so you can gauge how bad is your problem. Now in this case, I'm going to jump into Microsoft Word. Now Blair, are you familiar with SQL?
Yeah, I'm pretty good with it.
Okay,
All right.
nice. Because Windows Analytics provides you a very similar query language to query your data.
So it's another structured query language.
Exactly.
Ah.
So now, if you look at the screen, at the top of the screen, you can see that we are querying the app reliability data set. We're filtering it down to Microsoft Word. Well, that's not the application we're looking for. We're looking for our sales application called MSX App Portal.
And it auto-completes for you. That's nice.
It does. Now, out of this query and below, you're gonna get multiple views of the data about your application. It will help you understand what's happening with it. And the first thing that you'll notice is that it gives you, at a glance, how many devices are actively using your application side by side with how many are crashing or having any failure problems.
So you got 77 devices using MSX Portal.
Correct.
7 of them having events that are crashes, and that percents with commercial that's not a number.
Oh yeah, good point. So if this was a different application, not internal to my company, I will be able to compare the crashes that I'm having in my enterprise to the commercial average. That will tell me if I'm doing better or worse in my enterprise, and take a look at that. Now in this case, it's an internal company app, so you see not a number there. Now, turns out that I didn't know that our application was crashing so often. Well, 10% of my users are experiencing crashes. The reason why we released a new version was to fix the majority of the problems. So one thing I want to know is that a new spike? Maybe are those problems that we just barely released, or are they experiencing constantly those problems? If we scroll, you'll be able to see a historical view of this data. It will give you a historical view of the last 14 days of this data, of this reliability data, to know how many devices are crashing every day. It also gives you an average trend of the last 14 days to measure how good you're doing before and after on any release.
So that purple line, it going down is a good thing. It means that you're eliminating crashes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it turns out that our major release did fix a lot of the problems that we were having. But you can see at the bottom of the screen that there are still a few devices that are crashing on every day. Now, even though it seems to be a small set of number of devices, I want to know what's happening. So I'm going to jump into the next section, the app and OS pivot. Now, this is my favorite section, and I'm going to tell you why.
We need to work on your favorite section.
Well, this is my favorite section because it gives you the answer to both questions that we were looking for, right? How fast is the organization adopting my latest version? Well, the version that we released was 4.12. And you can see that most of my users have already adopted the latest version. This is good. There are still a handful of users lagging behind in some older versions, but I can just reach out to them and see what's happening.
4.10, that was a long time ago, huh?
That was a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Now, second question, did I regress something? Well, with this view, I can compare the latest version with my older versions to see if they're crashing more often than before. In this case, you can see that our latest version, 4.12, has been crashing more than our older versions. Now, granted, statistically speaking, we cannot say for sure that this is crashing more often, that our latest version is crashing more often than before, just because of the number of devices we have on the older versions.
Small sample size.
Some small sample size, but still, you're probably like me. I'm a perfectionist, or at least I want to know what's happening with those devices, because what if one of those is your manager?
So you're switching jobs and trying to get promoted right away. I got it.
That's correct.
Okay.
What if one of those is your VP? And you don't want to get into that position, and you want to know what's happening before they go into your room. For that, you want to scroll to the bottom of Windows Analytics. The reliability event history will give you a sample of devices, of those devices that are experiencing problems. In this case, I have one device that is experiencing problems. Now, this is really good and bad for me. I'm going to explain why. It's good because now I have a device, a user, a human I can go and talk to and try to reproduce this problem in their machine. Now, it's bad because it's my manager's device, And she's not here. She's in a different country giving a conference. And I need to fix this ASAP. Well, now this is the perfect moment to introduce the Windows Desktop Application Program, which is going to allow me to drill into these kind of problems all the way down to diagnostic logs and root cause it and fix it. Now remember, the Windows Desktop Application Program will allow you to have a laser-focused view into your applications, no matter where they run. Just similar like Windows Analytics, it allows you to track its adoption and the health. But more importantly, it will give you remote access to diagnostic logs from your insiders. It also gives you all this data through REST APIs.
So why is that important?
Well, it's important because it will allow you to build and automate more complex scenarios for your organizations and for you.
So this looks pretty cool. Who made it?
You're looking at some of the team that helped.
There you go.
There's another person over there.
All right.
Now, to join the program, it's very easy. Just go and create a Dev Center account. If you don't have one, register for the program and claim your applications. It's that easy. Now, how do we know that you own the applications you're claiming you want to look in the dashboard? Well, I'm going to talk about that in a bit. Now, the first time that you log into your dashboard, your homepage will be empty. In this case, I prepared this account for the demo, but your dashboard will be empty. It will allow you to add new applications to your dashboard. Now, the process to claim your applications is very simple. We created a file that is specific to your Dev Center account. You'll have to download that file and sign it to the same codes with the same code sign-in certificate that you use to sign your applications in your company. Once you sign your file, submit it to the website, and we'll take it from there.
And so this is the same code signing file that you use elsewhere, that you're going to be able to see the history of not just the application that you're starting on from new, but you're going to see everything that you've worked on previously.
Correct, that you have released in the past.
That you've released in the past.
Yes.
So you've already built out a body of data out there. You just need to go tap into it.
Correct.
Okay.
Remember, for free.
For free.
Now, the next time that you come in here and we have processed your file, you'll be able to see a summary of all the applications we were able to link to your account. Now, notice you did not have to submit any of your applications nor any metadata. We're working with the code sign-in certificates, the same certificates you use to sign your applications. Once we take the signature of that file that you submitted, we'll be able to identify you and the applications that you own. Now, in our case, I know that a couple of weeks ago, when we did the major release with this sales application, we included a utility that helped us log diagnostics into Azure. It's called azlog.exe. You can find it at the bottom of the screen.
So azlog exes failed 109 times across 263 instances in the last 30 days.
In the last 30 days.
That's not good.
No, so I wonder if that's what's causing some of the problems in our sales application. So let's drill into that. Now, similar to Windows Analytics, you'll be able to look at your data in multiple views. This will allow you to understand what's happening with this application. And the first thing that you'll see is a trend for the last 30 days of your application. It would allow you to detect any spikes in case you release something in production, as well as if your current users are experiencing any problems. Now, in this case, it also gives you a breakdown per version of your application. I know that we haven't released any changes on this utility, but I know that we made a change on the configuration to connect to Azure. That might be some of the problems that are happening. Now, to keep drilling further, what you want to do is go to the end of the screen. Why? Because this is going to be the most important thing you want to look for. What this tells you is we're putting together all this data per failure ID. What does that mean? Okay, it means that every problem, all the problems that your users are experiencing right now are caused by only 3 different bugs, 3 different exceptions. In this case, something that is even cooler, it means that 97% of the problems that my users are hitting are caused by just one single bug, an authorization exception.
So that's a lot better than the 80-20 rule. You can fix all your problems, or 97% of your problems with one fix.
Correct. Now I can be a slacker. Don't
No,
tell anybody.
Don't tell anyone. Okay, all right.
Now, let's drill into that particular failure ID. In the next page, you'll be able to drill into that particular failure ID and see a historical trend just for that particular failure. But the most interesting thing for you will be at the bottom of the screen. It will be the failure log. This gives you a sample of devices that are experiencing problems that are your insiders. This allows you to look at certain properties of those devices in case you want to cluster some of them to find patterns. But most importantly, you'll be able to look at the stack traces of almost every single device that is experiencing problems. Now, why is that important? Because I'm pretty sure where's the bug in my code. If I open the stack trace, I'll be able to triage this bug and know where to go and fix it. Now, if you look at the frame number 1, you'll be able to see that it's possible that the configuration change that I made a couple of weeks ago is actually causing this problem. Now, this was an easy bug for me to find.
It's because you're good at your job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, what if the problems that you're encountering are much more difficult to debug, right? Well, what you want to do is you want to click on failure download. What it's going to provide you is it's going to provide you the memory dump or crash dump of every insider that is hitting this problem. Now you can take that memory dump, that crash dump, load it into Visual Studio, and start debugging even the most difficult problems that your users are hitting right here from Bill.
And so you're saying it's all done remotely.
Correct.
So you don't need access to the user's machine, and it just happens.
And it just happens. And I can fix this problem before my manager comes back.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So that was the Windows Desktop Application Program, Windows Analytics, and the Windows Insider Program. All three of these, when put together, is the modern way for you guys to start working with the regular releases of Windows early, to check data, and to drill into particular applications to ensure that they'll continue to work on everything going forward. It's not saying that things will break, it's saying that you have the opportunity to get ahead of the curve. Okay?
Perfect.
So with that, we have one more slide that we want you to take a picture of. If you're not already part of the Insider program, go to ak.ms Insider Devs. If you haven't already gotten a subscription to Windows Analytics, like I said, everything is free, so try it. Download it now. I don't know how the Wi-Fi is here at Build yet. We're still early. But try it out, see if it works. And then the Windows Desktop Application Program, sign your files, see how they're being adopted, both inside your organization and if you work for an ISV outside of your organization as well. So
Tell everyone. Tell your mom, tell your boss, tell everyone.
Tell everyone, tell your mom, tell your boss. Thank you, Donna. All right, so with that, we have some time for questions. Anyone? I know that you had something earlier.
So I'd like to invite the rest of the Insider crew up.
Yes.
And you can ask whatever random questions you want about the program.
Sir?
Couple questions. One of them, when you talk about crashes, you're talking about application crashes.
Correct.
Do you get any information if, like, the machine bug checks?
Yes. And for that, what you want to do is you want to go to Windows Analytics. That's the one that's going to give you the information about bug checks.
Okay. And the second question was, you showed the example there at the end of getting like a stack trace. How do you get that with, you said that no data about your application, including metadata, is not uploaded, so you're obviously not asking for like debug symbols or anything like that. So how does that actually work?
Yes.
How do you get a stack trace?
Yes, so right now we're working on a feature to allow you to submit your symbols to be able to walk through the entire stack. And so right now what you see are just anything that is part of a public symbol.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I got a couple of questions, but stop me when you don't want that anymore.
Go for it.
The first one is the slow ring thing. I actually think that's a very good idea that slow ring gets its own identity because it's the forgotten child somehow. One thing that sometimes has bugged me is the SDK releases always connected to the fast ring right now. And if you actually just want to do stuff on the new SDK, but don't want to infect your daily machine with the fast ring. Is there a plan of synchronizing SDKs with the slow ring?
I mean,
Normally our slow ring releases are going to would have priorly been a fast ring build. And so when they reach slow, there should be a high probability that an SDK is already available for it. So does that make sense?
Well, in the last couple of releases, whenever I've been working with somebody on the Windows team, hey, there's a new SDK, and then it's only on a fast ring, and then
we haven't
way later.
Yeah, we haven't traditionally been really good with slow. This announcement that we made, we're really excited about because we are going to be better at slow with servicing and making sure that it's kind of like pretty much a beta release.
It won't be so random.
Yeah, it won't be random. Like, we're committed to pretty much monthly slow ring releases. Because the slow ring builds are always fast builds first, the likelihood that there'll be an SDK available for it when it reaches the slow ring should be high. So that means that when you get a slow ring build, you should be ready to take an SDK and start doing your stuff and whatnot. And you should expect the slow build to be solid and beta-ish and all that.
So the answer to your question is yes. Sorry. The answer to your question is yes. You can expect more predictability in the SDK because generally the SDK is already available by the time the slow ring comes out. Once Joel is done being a hero, soon, no pressure, then you can expect that the SDK will be, one, in a higher quality build, and two, predictably available at some sort of cadence of once a month.
Sounds good.
There you go.
Next question,
Let's
unless
cycle in
somebody
one more.
lining up behind me.
Let's cycle in one more and we'll get you in after.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a short question anyway. What is the relationship between the Windows Analytics and the Windows Desktop Analytics and the Azure Application Insight program?
That is a good question. So right now they're not working together, if I want to say that. So there are different programs that you want to join, and we should be in touch with them to see how we can all three collaborate.
You can imagine those, it's an and. So these enterprise sort of programs we have at Microsoft will soon start coming together. The point of M365 is to bring together the Windows and Office programs, right? Right now it's this mysterious thing where you get Office releases some cadence, Windows releases a different cadence. And then now that we're much more integrated with the Azure team, you're going to see a lot more collaboration that way as well. That way you'll be able to say, okay, here's a Windows app that runs with an Azure backend. What does this all mean? Is this an Azure app? Is it a Windows app? Is it Windows Insiders? Is it Azure Insiders? Yes, it's an and. So we are going to have tighter collaboration. We just started 2 weeks ago. So it's going to take a bit of time. As you know, we've been working on Microsoft 365 for a year, right? Almost. We announced like last year at Inspire in July. And it's taken this long to actually get out releases at some sort of cadence and a tool that people can actually use. So the Azure and Windows integration thing is going to happen. It takes a long time to move a 30-year-old operating system to do things differently, because every time we remove a chunk of code or add things to it, it gets bigger. And one of the pieces of feedback we've heard from everybody in the entire world who uses Windows is OMG, shrink it, right? So we're on this big mission to shrink the size of Windows. I don't know if you know, but it's down a gig, right? It's on a diet, man. Yeah, it's on a diet. Windows is on a major diet. It's one of my core missions is to shrink Windows down to like as small as we can get it, but while still being at a point where we still have all the rich functionality. So yeah, strip out some Windows, store some stuff in the cloud, but we also have to keep in mind that while storing stuff in the cloud, you need to factor in caching and things like that, which takes up a lot of power on your machine, because you can't just work in a place that's always connected, because then you're not doing most of the world a good service. When we were in North Carolina, they were saying connectivity is an issue, like, oh, in North Carolina. So they were saying, I swear, we go out into the middle of like the most rural place ever and build their data center. And we were laughing because we thought, okay, everyone thinks there's a problem in like Africa or South America. No, It's an issue in North Carolina as well.
It's actually not an issue with the Azure Insight application Insight thing. It will cache and stuff.
We're doing overlaps of community. Like over the course of the last year, we have a big overlap with the Office Insiders community. We had everyone who's a Windows Insider MVP sign up to Office Insiders if they have O365. We say if you have O365, exactly, then opt into Office Insidering, because that way you can get the releases early. Because probably if you're used to the insider lifestyle, you want it across the board. So that overlap is quite high. We have just started having the conversation with Azure team. And we ourselves need to wrap our head around what that means. And we have to start behaving that way in the office, like start flighting Azure apps ourselves.
So last question. So several of my apps are unsigned, which of course will not go against that thing, but they have a Azure Insight, Application Insight ID. So just a suggestion that perhaps some sort of a collaboration, so even though it's an unsigned app, it might work anyway because it has an Azure Insight, Application Insight ID.
It's a good idea. Yeah, we love feedback, so we'll take that back. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll code it.
Yeah, Fernie will write it. Yeah. Sir.
Will you adapt that thing on a weekend, you guys? Seriously, guys.
Okay, for the Windows Desktop Application Program, does the registration also work with internal PKI-based code signing certificates?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the registration for Desktop Application Program, it requires that I sign that file that I download.
Okay.
And it also works with just internal PKI-based code signing certificates. Or does it need to be a public code signing certificate? So do you need to prove the chain?
Yeah. So we prove the change. So it has to be a publicly signable.
Okay, that's definitely an issue. So.
Well, yeah, we'll take the feedback.
If you are an enterprise, and if you're only developing internal applications, then of course you already have PKI in place. So your code signing is coming from internal.
Yeah, that's good feedback. We'll take it.
Okay, thanks. And one more question, just for the slow ring. I work for a global company, and many locations are really poorly connected. So deploying slow ring through internet, through Windows Store for Windows Update for Business is not working. So is there any chance that we can get an ISO file for every slow ring? Because our pros, they really have infrastructure, config manager with the content management, so we could easily use it.
Yeah, so for every slow ring release we do, we release ISOs for it.
Okay.
So you'll be able to download the ISO and use that to deploy what other mechanism internally.
Okay, that's perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
We get poor connectivity. It's
Yeah.
an issue. It's a global issue.
Yeah.
Zach didn't have connectivity for 3 months. So in London.
Back.
Sure.
So I'm a little bit curious about the servicing of the slow ring. Can you talk about what kind of issues would warrant servicing of the slow ring?
Well, we have a certain. So when a build goes through all of the ring, like the ring progression, where canary, self-host, then it goes to fast, and then it goes to slow. Like when it goes into the fast ring, for a build to transition into slow, it has to meet a certain criteria, which means certain issues need to not be there. If there are certain issues that are there that have been reported by insiders, but we know that this is the build that's going to go to slow, we will then service those bugs. So like, in addition to keeping you up to date with the security updates and all that fun stuff for Patch Tuesday, we will also patch for major bugs that insiders find on that release. So that's kind of what that means. So instead of waiting until we have a bug that's fixed constantly, which is what's been delaying us from getting a slow build out, we will actually just say, no, this is the build. This is the candidate. And if there's bugs, we will then fix those bugs through a servicing patch, and then we will push it out to the slow ring. So it will allow us to be more nimble rather than constantly waiting for a build to have fixes checked in. That just hasn't been working out for us because then other bugs are introduced, et cetera, et cetera. And so this just allows us to just actually put our foot in the sand and say, we will have a build. It'll go out. We will have these fixes. We will make sure you're secure, all that fun stuff. So that's kind of what that means.
Okay.
Joel, did I hit that right, or are you going to throw something at me?
Make some stuff up there. Some good
Okay, I just want to make sure that you're not going to, see me in the hall and kick me in the knee. And
What did you just say? Yeah. You commit people to stuff in public, then they have to do it. So,
Just to continue to that question, is this what we have seen in 1803 in the last builds, so that we received an update, and is it really planned that these updates to the slow rings will also be published through WSUS?
I don't know if, so it'll still go through WIP.
Okay, so it is not that what we have seen in the last pre-release builds of
So,
1803. That there was some
1803,
updates.
the last
Exactly.
release was final, and so that transitioned to a different kind of mechanism for getting it out. But for normal Windows Insider releases, it's just through WIP.
What you saw at 1803 was we finished
Yep.
the release candidate, pushed through all the channels, and
Yep.
then we actually had a couple of fixes that we had to put in on the release candidate, so we re-released it, which is why you saw it get published.
Yeah. So, but that then means that my clients that run on a slow ring need to have internet connection to get the patches.
Or they pull down ISOs and use the ISOs.
We're going to try to, when we release the build, so like, I'll give you an example. We may have a build that's 17661.1. We may end up releasing a 1766.1.15 to slow. And that .15 implies it has additional fixes that are baked into the build. So then that build will then become the ISO. So when you download the ISO, you're going to install the build that has those fixes. Did I get that right, Joel? Okay, just making sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Others? We have a minute 30 left.
Minute 30 left. No one has questions. You're just too scared to ask, because then we'll launch it to tirade for 5 minutes.
All right, well, thank you guys.
Thank
for
you
your
for
Thank
time.
you, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thank you.